Hi everyone, it is Atia here at Booking It with Atia, and today we're going to get into some weekly wrap-ups. So I was a little bit under the weather. So this is actually going to be a culmination of weeks 12 and 13, which is April 15th through April 28th. And because I was a little bit under the weather, I read a little bit less than other weeks, so it works out fine. But before we jump into the weekly wrap up and me talking about the book, let's chit chat about how you can help me, help me garner some views, help me garner some moolah, right? So make sure that you're subscribed and that you've hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video. Also make sure to check out my Etsy shop. I have bookish clothing, drinkware, and there's also more to come, as well as my Pango Books storefront where you can basically shop my unhaul shelves, and these are books that are in excellent condition for excellent prices, so like why not check it out and support your fellow creator. And then also check out my latest video after you're finished watching this one. And now let's jump into my weekly wrap up. In terms of DNFs for these 2 weeks, I only DNF'd one book, and that was A Tempest of Chi by Hafsa Faisal. I want to say maybe like 27% into this one, and I just was bored. Like, I was honestly listening to it because, well, first of all, I was interested. Like, I was genuinely interested in it, and then it became a Beat You Weird book club pick. So I was like, great, this works out perfectly because I was already planning on reading it. And then I started listening to it. I was playing Spiritfarer on my Switch, and I realized that it is great background noise, but I was not interested in the story whatsoever, and something just wasn't working for me with the writing and the characters and the intrigue. And honestly, I was bored. When I was listening to it, I was like, I really want to get back to this other audiobook that I'm listening to, and I DNF'd it. If Hafsa Faisal comes out with something else, I will definitely give it a try because I definitely enjoyed her duology, which was We Hunt the Flame and I think We Free the Stars. I really enjoyed that duology, and I enjoyed her writing, and this one just fell flat for me. In terms of what I finished, I'm going to separate this into categories, starting with novels, novellas, and novelettes. Starting with, where is she? Here she is. CC Rios and the Queen of Brujas. This is the third and final installment in the CC Rios series. This is a middle grade fantasy series. It's one of my favorites, honestly, and this is an excellent ending to a middle grade fantasy series. There's a beautiful bond between CC and her sister Juana, as well as their mother, and the fantasy in this book is based on Mexican mythology and folklore. I can't really tell you what this one is about because it's a little bit of a spoiler to what happens in the first book and the second book, but if you're someone who enjoys middle grade fantasy, if you're someone who enjoys Mexican folklore, if you're someone who enjoys stories about girls who are simply trying to exist and thrive in a world that tells them that they have to confine to certain roles, then I would highly recommend the CC Rios trilogy. And I ended up giving CC Rios and the Queen of Brujas by Kayla Rivera 4 stars. Next up, we have I Want to Give You Flowers by M.L. Sexton. This is a novella that I've had checked out from Kindle Unlimited for so long, and I finally decided that it was time to just read it. And this one follows a woman who when we meet her, she is divorced, and her ex-husband, who is also the father of her son, is recently killed in the line of duty. He was a soldier, and so we're following her as she's trying to overcome that grief, because even though they were divorced, she still loved him. Like, this is the man that she had a child with, she was married to, and she's also trying to navigate her own grief as well as the grief of her son who lost his father. And then she is set up by her best friend with this personal trainer who happens to be a woman. So yes, this is a queer woman love woman story, and the trainer is not really looking for anyone like you know, they just out here trying to do their job, but there's an instant attraction and they decide to see where this goes. And I appreciated how the focus was on them starting the relationship. This does not feel insta-lovey. This feels very much, because this is a novella, there's like 64 pages. This feels very much like, okay, we met under circumstances that we did not expect, and we are going to, you know, end this business partnership because like that's weird, and explore where this can go. And, you know, if we end up falling in love, we end up falling in love. And if we don't, we don't. But, like, let's just explore the ride. I appreciated that. And this has a good amount of character work in only 64 pages. Like, so go ML Sexton. I did download the second book in this series. I'm not sure who this follows now that I'm saying that. But I'm looking forward to reading more from this author because I think they did a great job. And I Want to Give You Your Flowers 4 stars. Then we have Technically Yours by Denise Williams. Denise Williams is turning out to be one of my favorite romance authors. Like, she just knows what she is doing. Every romance is a hit. I have not rated any of her romances that I've read so far under 4 stars. Sis knows how to write a romance. She knows how to write plot. She knows how to write character development. And this was just so rich and great and awesome. And I really dug the back and forth timeline. So we follow Pearl and Cord, who they had a little bit of a thing going on in the past, but then it fizzled out for reasons you find out in the book. And so this is a second chance romance. I dug the back and forth timeline that we got. I thought it was really well done. And for my full thoughts actually on this book, I have an upcoming video where I'm reading 3 of my most anticipated romances by Black women authors, and this one is featured in the video. So be on the lookout for that to hear my full thoughts on this book. I was going to tell you the rating, but you'll just have to watch that video to find out what I think about this book in totality. Then we have Lyric by Gray Huffington. This is the second book in the Eisenberg Effect by Gray Huffington, the first book being Luca. If you watched my March reading recap, you will know that Luca was one of my favorite books of March. And so I continued on in this series. Lyric is the baby sister of the Eisenberg siblings, and this is her love story. I appreciated the insight that we get to Lyric's character and her reluctance to enter a relationship and why she's reluctant to enter a relationship. And Keanu was a superb main character, and that's Lyric's love interest. Like, this man was so down bad for Lyric, but he also had standards. So she irked me a little bit. It's like, okay, you really going back and forth. Like, you want to be with him, you don't want to be with him. Make up your mind. But Keanu was very much like, yo, I'm in love with you. I'm about this life. But if you're not ready for this type of commitment, I'ma head out. And I respected that so much. It's like, we always praise female main characters, especially like female main characters in romance, who are able to say to male main characters. And of course, this is in a heteronormative circumstance, but we always praise these female main characters for being like, yeah, like, I have standards. You're not going to jerk me around, da 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 da. But I appreciate that we have a male main character who is able to do that and say that and set boundaries and know his worth as well, especially in a Black romance with a Black man protagonist. And that was really chef's kiss for me, and I loved it. And you know, he just knew what behavior he would not accept from Lyric, and he stuck to that, and I enjoyed the love story so much. The back and forth was quite annoying, as I hinted at, and honestly, the book could have been 100 pages shorter. And it would have been a tighter story. And the ending was very rushed. Like, I don't know, like, especially compared to Luca, which of course you don't want to compare books by the same author, especially when they're in the same series. But at the same time, it's like, I know that this author can write a not rushed ending. So for the ending of Lyric to be rushed was just like, sis, I know you can do better. But all in all, I gave Lyric by Gray Huffington 4 stars. Then we have Akata Woman by Nettie of Korafor. This is the third book in the Insibidi Scripts series. This series is not complete. Apparently, Nettie Okorafor has plans for at least 10 books in this series, which is great. This is the latest installment in this series. This is a great expansion of the Insibidi world and the Leopard Society and the magic system, and I'm really enjoying it. And we get so much character growth in Chi-Chi and Sasha, which are two of the secondary characters that are Sunny's, who's our protagonist, her best friend. That is so needed because I feel like in the second book, Akata Warrior, we get so much development of course, Sunny, but also Orlu. And we don't get enough of Chi-Chi and Sasha. And we get so much character development for them in this book, which I really appreciated. And I ended up giving this one 4.25 stars. Next up, we have Just a Girl by Alyssa Cole. This is an Amazon original short story. And this one follows a college-age young woman who she has made a social media presence during the COVID-19 pandemic, just essentially being like, you know, I'm just a girl who wanted to go to college. I'm making all these recipes, and she becomes like very famous on TikTok, and she ends up going on a dating app and interacting with this man or this other young man who is like very creepy, and she calls him out, not by name, but she calls him out in one of her videos, and that triggers a series of events where she is being targeted, doxxed, harassed by these men who feel like she did not, you know, stay in her place or whatever. And I thought that the format choice of this was so smart. So in this one, this entire novelette, which is what, you know, it's a short story, but because it's on its own, I call it a novelette. This entire thing was a collection of TikTok video and podcast transcripts, text messages, Discord messages, and news articles. And I thought that was just smartly done. Like, Alyssa Cole really did what she needed to do with this, and she did it smartly, and I was able to get a full-fledged story, full-fledged characters from that type of storytelling, and it really added to the tension. And it definitely packs a punch in such a short story, and I ended up giving Just a Girl by Alyssa Cole 5 stars. Then we have another Amazon original story, Emergency Skin by N.K. Jemisin. This woman can write. Yeah, that's a full sentence. I knew that N.K. Jemisin could write, but every time I read N.K. Jemisin, I'm like, damn, this woman can write. Whoever N.K. Jemisin had to sacrifice to get the writing skills she had, sis, let me know, because there's no reason why this Amazon original story was this good. Absolutely no reason. I don't even know how to describe this story to you, but I'ma try. So basically, this is a story told in second person, very much like her Broken Earth trilogy, but this is a story told in second person, and you are from the perspective of this sentient being, this, I guess we call it human, who has come down to what used to be Earth after a climate crisis has caused all the rich and powerful to flee the Earth to someplace in the stars. But for some reason, the people in the stars need something from Earth. And so they send you down to get something from Earth. But in your head, in your mind, they have put some kind of AI technology that's supposed to give you all this information about Earth and what you're supposed to do and how to do all these different mechanisms. And this was a scathing commentary on eco-terrorism. This was a scathing commentary on the climate crisis, on capitalism, on how the rich and wealthy will leave us in the dust when it comes down to it. And read it. I have Kindle Unlimited, so I was able to read a part of that subscription. But even if you don't have Kindle Unlimited, it costs 99 cents on Kindle. Pay the 99 cents and read it. And I promise you, you will not regret it. If you couldn't tell, I gave that 5 stars. That was absolutely excellent. N.K. Jemisin is a master at telling stories in a second person perspective. yeah, that's it. And then I also read Falling Bodies by Rebecca Rowanhorse. This is another Amazon original story, also fantasy, and it has a little bit of a touch of like the eco-terrorism themes, and we follow a protagonist where in this world we have humans and then we have some other alien species that has overtaken humans. They are supposed to be superior to humans. Our protagonist is a human, but they were raised by this alien race, and they are trying to figure out how to navigate living in both those worlds. They go away to school, they're trying to find themselves. There's interesting commentary on freedom and what it means to be free, and Rowanhorse does an excellent job dropping us into this world without it feeling overwhelming. Like, I felt as if I started this story and I had just opened up a book that I had already been reading and just continued. I did not feel overwhelmed. I did not feel lost. And I have read 3 other books by Rebecca Rowanhorse, and it's kind of like that same feeling that she just has a way of writing where you feel as if you were always in this world, and that's pretty incredible. And I gave Falling Bodies by Rebecca Rowanhorse 4 stars. And then we have Just Out of Jupiter's Reach by Nnedi Okorafor. I sound like a broken record, but this is another Amazon original story. This one follows a world in which they are sending, I believe, 7 people into space with these sentient alien spaceship beings to live in space for 10 years. We meet our protagonist after 5 years when she is meeting up with the other travelers, because that is the arrangement they made with the organization that sent them into space. This one was okay. It was an interesting look at isolation and what it means to sacrifice yourself for the greater good and sacrifice yourself for science. And I ended up giving this one 3 stars. The last novelette that I read was another Amazon original story, and this one is The Cleaners by Ken Liu. This one was fascinating. This one takes place in a world where people have the ability to touch objects, and we leave remnants of our memory on objects. So if you were to touch a lipstick case and some event happens as you're touching this lipstick case, remnants, I forget what they call it in the story. Yeah, I forget the word they use, but remnants of that memory, physical remnants, would be left on the lipstick case. And then someone else who came and touched the lipstick case would be hit with those same emotions that you were feeling. And some people have a more finely tuned ability, so they might actually see what you were seeing, but some people just, feel the emotions. You have others who are memory blind. They can pick up an object and it doesn't affect them at all. So we have a cleaner who is responsible for taking objects and scrubbing them of these memories, and he is also memory blind. We follow him. We follow another woman who has brought the objects of her and her partner. They have, separated, and she's like, hey, I want these memories to go, as well as her sister. And I just found the storytelling to be unique. I found the premise of the story to be unique, and I would absolutely love a full and complete novel in this world. Ken Liu is a brilliant writer. I've only read 1 book by him, and I don't want to butcher the name. I'll put the cover here, but it's the first book in the Dandelion Dynasty series, and I need to continue on with that series because I really thought that his way of writing and storytelling was just so spot on and just great. And I gave The Cleaners by Ken Liu 4 stars. Then in terms of picture books, I only read 2 picture books these past 2 weeks. It's been a very slow picture book time for the last half of April. And the first one being Seoul Food by Erin Danielle Russell, illustrated by Tamisha Anthony. And this one is really cool. It's a little girl trying to figure out what meal to cook for her 2 sets of grandparents. She has 1 set of grandparents who are Black and from the American South, and she has another set of grandparents who are Korean, and I believe they also live in Korea, and she is trying to figure out a meal to serve them both when they're both sets are coming to visit that will please and fulfill both sides. And also just, she is of mixed heritage, so she wants to make a dish that satisfies her entire soul, and I just really love this. I ended up giving it 5 stars. The second picture book that I finished was Nell Plants a Tree by Ann Winter and illustrated by Danielle Miyares. This is a beautiful story about a tree planted on family land that grows and becomes part of the family story throughout generations. I loved how subtle the storytelling was in this book, and I also love the artwork. I thought it was a great story and had a great message, and I ended up giving Nell Plants a Tree 4.5 stars. All right, now moving on to the manga that I read. I read A Side Character's Love Story Volume 1. That is a contemporary romance. I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Akane Banashi Volume 5, another contemporary, which I also gave 4 stars. I read Osan Idol Volume 1, adult contemporary. I gave it 4 stars. I finally read One Piece Volume 1, which is a fantasy pirate swashbuckling story, and I gave that one 4 stars. I read Asadora Volume 7, which is a sci-fi horror historical fiction, and I gave that one 5 stars. Then I read Blue Period Volume 14, which is a YA contemporary, and I gave that 5 stars. Then I read I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, which is a YA contemporary that absolutely ripped my heart out and drove over it, and I gave it 5 stars. It's a thick one, but it is so worth it, and I highly recommend it. I also read Inspector Volume 1, which is a fantasy, and I gave that one 5 stars. I read Noragami Stray God Volume 3, which is another fantasy, and I gave it 4 stars. I read Tokyo Ghoul Volume 2, which is I would say like horror fantasy, and I gave that one 4 stars. I read Crazy Food Truck Volume 1, which is a dystopian, and I gave that one 4 stars as well. I read Volume 6 of Witch Hat Atelier, which is a fantasy series, and I gave that one 4 stars. Then I read Our Dreams at Dusk Volume 3. This is a YA queer contemporary, and I gave that one 5 stars. Then I read I Married My Female Friend Volume 1. This is an adult queer contemporary, and I gave that one 5 stars. I also read Wotakoi Love is Hard for Otaku Volume 1, which is an adult contemporary, and I gave that one 4 stars. I also made progress in 4 different books during that week that I did not finish, but hopefully, finished in the week coming up. And that includes What the Fireflies Knew by Kai Harris, Ablaze by A.H. Cunningham, Womb City by Toloto Susamase, and Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto. And that equals a total of, for those 2 weeks, 4,215 pages and 19 hours, 9 minutes. It was a solid week. It was a real solid week. I'm also happy that I got back into audiobooks, because I know in my previous wrap up, I think I was saying that me and audiobooks weren't agreeing at the time. Like, for some reason, I just was not picking up the audiobooks that I was listening to, but I've kind of found my way back to them. And yeah, that is it in terms of my weekly wrap up for weeks 12 and 13. Make sure you are subscribed and that you've hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video. My Etsy shop, my Pango Books storefront, all of that is linked down below, as well as all of my social media. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Showing. I ain't living for the moment. I see what's mine and I want it. Hungry like a Pac-Man. I'm Bruce Wayne and Batman. I'm Naruto with a Hanzo. Got a sharp mind like I'm Einstein. Plus I'm copywriting, so it's all mine. Check it for me, I'm in the sky.